In the previous lesson, we learned how to add cameras for interior rendering. To set the kitchen camera as the active camera, simply select it in the outliner. Then, in the Layout tab, go to View, hover over Cameras, and choose Set Active Object as Camera. By holding down the middle mouse button, you can rotate the view. Scrolling the mouse wheel lets you zoom out far enough to move outside the house. In the viewport shading, select Rendered to display the render preview. At this point, we're not concerned about which render engine we'll be using. As you can see, the scene is almost completely dark. There's no sun, no sky. Go to the Properties panel and look for the World Properties tab. It's the one with the small globe icon. In the Surface section, click the little yellow dot next to the color field. From the list that appears, select Sky Texture. Among the different sky types, we'll choose Nishita because it offers more precise control over the lighting and atmosphere settings. Now we can observe how the sky changes color, transitioning between day and night within the celestial sphere. However, it looks like our house is floating above a dark void, almost like a black hole beneath it. While this is simply part of the default environment, it can be distracting. Although our main focus is interior rendering, let's add a large ground plane to cover this empty space and provide a more realistic base for the house. First, go to the Layout tab. Then, click on Add, hover over Mesh, and select Plane. To scale the plane, press S and move your mouse outward until it's large enough to cover the entire area beneath the house. Currently, the plane sits at the same level as the house, which isn't ideal. So let's lower it slightly. Press G to move the plane, then Z to constrain the movement to the vertical axis. Use the down arrow key once or twice to drop it just below the house's foundation. Once it's in place, press Enter to confirm. Blender's default render engine is Eevee. Even though we've enabled the sun disk option, the house isn't casting any shadows on the large plane we added. To fix this, go to the Render Properties tab, which has the camera icon, and switch the render engine to Cycles. As we can see, the preview render is slower, but once it finishes, the shadows of the house and the table appear clearly on the plane. To speed up viewport rendering on a low-performance computer, go to the Render Properties tab. Under the Sampling section, reduce the max samples to 10. This helps lighten the processing load. Next, switch to the World Properties tab. Let's take a closer look at the Nishita Sky settings. When the sun is high in the sky, some changes to the settings might not be very noticeable. To better observe the effects, let's set the sun's elevation to 0 degrees. This adjustment places the sun near the horizon, creating an atmospheric effect that resembles sunrise or sunset, with softer, warmer tones. The sun size parameter controls the apparent size of the sun in the sky. Increasing this value makes the sun disk appear larger. If we uncheck the sun disk option, the sun disappears from the sky and the shadows vanish as well. Sun intensity adjusts the brightness or strength of the sunlight. Sun rotation allows us to rotate the sun around the zenith, which affects the direction of the light and shadows. The altitude setting simulates the camera's height above sea level. This impacts the appearance of the atmosphere. For example, to send our viewpoint to the mesosphere, enter a value greater than 50,000 meters. Let's reset all the values to their default settings, except for the rotation. Setting the elevation angle to 90 degrees positions the sun directly overhead, replicating the lighting conditions of midday, typically around 12 o'clock noon. Be cautious with values below 5, as they can make the viewport almost completely dark. Now, Let's shift the viewport to the moon, where there's no atmosphere. We can simulate intense volcanic activity by adjusting the air and dust settings. However, since the result might look and sound a bit scary, let's revert everything back to the default values. Simply right-click on the sliders and choose Reset to Default Value from the menu. Now that we've probably pushed our knowledge of physics to the limit, let's keep things simple and use the Ozone slider to observe how it affects the scene in our viewport. Here's another creative idea. If we want to recreate the effect of a solar eclipse or simulate the night sky, we can simply reduce the light strength, lower the air parameter, and experiment with the ozone settings to achieve a more atmospheric result. On the other hand, dramatically increasing it might create something that feels almost supernatural and possibly dangerous. But before we spark any heated debates about simulating natural phenomena, let's go to View, then Cameras, and finally select Active Camera. Now it's time to set up our environment to explore how different lighting conditions affect our space, whether it's the soft morning glow of the summer solstice or the evening ambience during the spring equinox. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.